Welcome to Money Depth Insights. I'm the finance guide, Nell John. Most people hear the phrase compound interest and immediately think of numbers, formulas, or charts. They imagine something technical, something that requires calculation, or something meant only for finance professionals. In reality, compound interest is not a mathematical trick. It is a pattern of behavior and time working together. Once that pattern is understood, the numbers become secondary. The real power of compounding lies not in complexity, but in patience, consistency, and allowing small actions to continue uninterrupted. To understand compound interest properly, it helps to first forget the word interest entirely. Interest makes people think of banks, percentages, and contracts. Compound interest is broader than that. It is simply the idea that growth builds on previous growth. What happens today does not stand alone. It becomes part of what tomorrow builds upon. This principle exists everywhere in life, not just in money, and recognizing it outside of finance makes it far easier to understand within finance. Think about how habits work. A single good habit does not change much on its own. Exercising once does not transform health. Eating well for one day does not reshape the body. But when those actions are repeated consistently, their effects begin to stack. Each day benefits from the effort of previous days. Over time, progress accelerates, not because the actions changed, but because the foundation beneath them grew stronger. This is compounding in its most natural form. Money behaves in a similar way, but only when time is allowed to do its work. Most people struggle with compound interest because its early stages feel unimpressive. At the beginning, growth appears slow, almost invisible. This creates doubt. People assume something is wrong because results do not feel dramatic. But compounding is not designed to impress early. It is designed to reward patience later. The mistake most people make is judging long-term systems with short-term expectations. Another reason compound interest is misunderstood is that people focus on outcomes instead of processes. They see large numbers in examples and assume those numbers appeared because of high income, luck, or perfect timing. In reality, those outcomes are usually the result of small, repeated actions allowed to run for a long time. Compound interest does not depend on intensity. It depends on continuity. What makes compound interest emotionally difficult is that it asks for restraint in a world that rewards immediacy. Humans are wired to respond to quick feedback. We feel motivated when effort produces visible results. Compounding often does the opposite. It asks for effort without immediate reward, trust without proof, and patience without excitement. This psychological mismatch is why many people understand compounding intellectually but fail to benefit from it in practice. To truly grasp compound interest, it helps to think of time as an active participant rather than a passive background. Time is not just something that passes. In compounding, time multiplies behavior. The same action repeated over a longer period produces disproportionately larger results. This is why starting earlier matters more than starting bigger. Time amplifies consistency far more effectively than it amplifies intensity. Many people delay action because they believe small amounts do not matter. They wait until they earn more, save more, or feel more confident. This delay is costly because compound interest is most powerful when time is longest. A smaller amount started earlier often outperforms a larger amount started later, not because of superiority in size, but because of superiority in duration. Time cannot be replaced once it is gone. It is also important to understand that compound interest works in both directions. Just as positive behaviors compound into growth, negative behaviors compound into damage. Debt, missed payments, poor habits, and neglect also build on themselves over time. The reason financial stress feels overwhelming for many people is not because of one large mistake, but because small issues were allowed to accumulate quietly. Compounding does not judge direction. It simply multiplies whatever it is given. Another subtle aspect of compound interest is that it rewards stability more than brilliance. You do not need to make perfect decisions. You need to avoid destructive ones. Consistency beats optimization over long periods. This is why calm, boring financial behavior often outperforms aggressive, exciting strategies. Compounding favors those who stay steady while others react. Real understanding begins when people stop asking how fast money can grow and start asking how long they can leave it alone. The power of compounding increases dramatically when interruptions are removed. Frequent changes, withdrawals, or emotional reactions reset the process. Every interruption reduces the effect of time. This is why discipline matters more than intelligence when it comes to long-term growth. Before we move into real-life financial examples, it is important to internalize one core truth. Compound interest is not something you activate. It is something you stop interfering with. Once the system is set correctly, the best action is often no action at all. Allowing growth to continue uninterrupted is what turns ordinary decisions into extraordinary outcomes over time. In the next part, we will move from concept into everyday financial examples, showing how compound interest appears in savings, investing, and even debt, using simple, relatable situations rather than formulas or abstract numbers. Part 2. How compounding shows up in real life and why it changes everything. Once the idea of compound interest is clear, the next step is seeing how it quietly operates in real life. This is where understanding turns into belief, because compounding stops being a concept and starts becoming something familiar. Most people miss the power of compound interest not because it is hidden, but because it looks ordinary in the beginning. Its strength only becomes obvious when time is allowed to do what it does best. Consider a simple example of saving money consistently. Imagine someone who saves a small amount every month and leaves it untouched. In the early years, the progress feels slow. The balance increases, but not in a way that feels exciting. Many people quit at this stage, assuming the effort is not worth it. What they do not realize is that the growth happening early is laying the foundation for acceleration later. Interest earned in one year becomes part of the base that earns interest the next year, and then the year after that. Over time, growth begins to come not just from new savings, but from past growth working on itself. Now consider the same principle applied to investing. When money is invested and left alone, returns begin to generate their own returns. In the early stages, the market's ups and downs feel dominant. Progress seems fragile. But over longer periods, something changes. The influence of time begins to outweigh the influence of short-term movement. This is why long-term investors often describe compounding as something that feels slow for many years and then suddenly feels powerful. In reality, it was always working. It just needed time to become visible. Compound interest also explains why starting late feels difficult, even with higher income. Someone who begins investing earlier with modest amounts often ends up ahead of someone who starts later with larger contributions. This happens not because the early starter was smarter, but because their money had more time to build on itself. Time is the one input that cannot be replaced, and compounding depends on it more than any other factor. The same principle appears clearly in debt, especially high-interest debt. When balances are carried forward, interest does not pause. It compounds quietly, increasing the amount owed even when no new spending occurs. This is why debt can feel manageable at first and overwhelming later. Small balances that are not addressed early grow into larger problems, not because of one decision, but because time multiplied the impact of inaction. Compound interest is neutral. It rewards positive behavior and amplifies negative behavior equally. One of the most important real-life lessons of compound interest is that it favors consistency over intensity. Saving or investing large amounts occasionally feels impressive, but small amounts saved or invested regularly often produce better long-term outcomes. Consistency allows compounding to remain uninterrupted. Interruptions slow growth more than people realize. Every time the process is stopped, the clock is partially reset. Compound interest also explains why emotional decisions are so costly. Pulling money out during downturns, stopping contributions, or constantly changing direction interrupts the compounding process. These actions may feel protective in the moment, but they reduce the long-term effect of time. The biggest cost is not the missed return in 1 year, but the loss of growth on that return in all the years that follow. Another real-life example appears in skills and knowledge. When people learn consistently and build on what they already know, understanding compounds. Small improvements stack. Over time, progress accelerates. The same is true financially. Compound interest rewards those who stay engaged just enough to remain consistent, but calm enough to avoid interference. What makes compound interest truly powerful is that it does not require perfection. It does not demand constant effort or brilliance. It requires patience, restraint, and trust in long-term processes. People who benefit most from compounding are often not the most aggressive or confident. They are the most steady. They allow time to do work that human effort cannot replicate. The most important mindset shift is realizing that compound interest is not about doing more. It is about stopping unnecessary actions. Once a system is in place, the best contribution is often leaving it alone. Growth happens quietly when interference stops. This is why compounding feels almost invisible in daily life but becomes undeniable over decades. In the end, compound interest teaches a broader lesson about money and life. Progress rarely comes from dramatic moves. It comes from small, sensible decisions repeated consistently and allowed to continue without interruption. Time rewards those who respect it. Those who rush, interrupt, or abandon the process often never see its full effect. If this explanation helped you understand compound interest more clearly, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe this understanding can help someone in your colleague or friend circle, make sure to share it with them. Education grows when knowledge is shared. This video is created for educational purposes only. For more calm, practical, and long-term financial understanding, subscribe to Money Depth Insights. I'm the Finance Guide, John Array, and I'll see you in the next session.